It was a cold morning in Providence when 74-year-old James Miller, a Vietnam veteran, arrived at the municipal court with a heavy heart. His old navy blue sedan, marked with a fading Vietnam veteran bumper sticker, carried the weight of his worries. A month earlier, he had received a citation for an expired vehicle registration, a small oversight that had grown into a source of deep anxiety. Living on a fixed pension and caring for his ailing wife, Linda, who suffered from dementia, James had fallen behind on bills and forgotten to renew his car registration. Today, he stood before Judge Frank Caprio, known nationwide for his compassion and fairness, hoping for understanding rather than punishment. When his name was called, James rose slowly, using his cane for support, and approached the bench. Judge Caprio looked up from his desk, his expression instantly softening at the sight of the elderly veteran. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," the judge greeted warmly. "How are you today?" James managed a polite nod. "Morning, Your Honor. I've been better, sir." The judge reviewed the paperwork and said, "It looks like you were ticketed for an expired registration. What happened here?" James hesitated, his voice trembling slightly as he replied, "I knew it was due, sir, but my wife's been sick. I'm her full-time caregiver, and between her medication, doctor visits, and my own heart problems, I just couldn't keep up. I wasn't trying to ignore the law." The courtroom fell silent as Judge Caprio listened intently. "You're a veteran, correct?" he asked gently. "Yes, sir," James replied. 24 years in the Army. Served in Vietnam." The judge nodded with respect, his tone softening further. "Thank you for your service, Mr. Miller. That means a great deal." James's eyes watered. "I've always tried to do the right thing. Your Honor, I'm just stretched thin these days. I renewed the registration as soon as I could." The clerk confirmed that the registration had indeed been updated 2 weeks after the ticket was issued. Judge Caprio leaned back, thoughtful, before saying, "Mr. Miller, this court isn't here to punish good people who are doing their best. The law must be followed, yes, but compassion must guide how it's applied." The judge paused, then continued, "Considering your service, your honesty, and your effort to correct the issue, I'm going to dismiss this case." James blinked in disbelief. "Dismissed?" he asked softly. "Yes, sir," Caprio replied with a kind smile. "You've already paid your dues to your country and your community. You don't owe the city another dime." Overcome with emotion, James's voice cracked. "Thank you, Your Honor. God bless you." The judge leaned forward and said gently, "No need to thank me, sir. Take care of yourself and your wife. You deserve some peace." As James turned to leave, the courtroom erupted into quiet applause. The bailiff stepped forward and shook his hand, saying, "Thank you for your service." James nodded, his eyes glistening. Outside, as he stepped into the crisp air, he felt lighter than he had in months. The fine had been dismissed, but more importantly, his dignity had been restored. Later that day, he returned home to Linda, who was sitting by the window, her gaze distant but peaceful. "Where'd you go, Jimmy?" she asked softly. He smiled and took her hand. "To see a good man," he said. "A man who reminded me the world still has kindness in it." Days later, the moment aired on Caught in Providence, and the story touched millions. Viewers from around the world praised Judge Caprio's compassion, calling it true justice with a heart. Veterans shared their own stories in the comments, thanking the judge for showing empathy toward one of their own. But James remained humble, quietly living his life, caring for his wife, and visiting the Veterans Center on weekends. Months later, Judge Caprio received a letter in shaky handwriting. "Dear Judge Caprio, you may not remember me, but I'll never forget you. You didn't just dismiss a fine. You reminded me why I served this country. Thank you for your kindness. Respectfully, James Miller, U.S. Army, retired." The judge smiled when he read it, folded the letter carefully, and placed it in his drawer beside other notes from those whose lives he'd touched. Justice, he thought, wasn't only about laws. It was about understanding. For James, that morning in court had been more than a dismissal. It had been a reminder that compassion could still be found in the halls of justice. And for everyone who heard the story, it became a lesson that mercy, when shown at the right moment, can echo longer than any verdict.